Oh my gosh. Here we are. It's
Hey,
episode 10. We made it to the double digits. Quasar with fries. My name is Rich. This is Wayne.
what's going on, guys?
We
Welcome back.
we are people that are doing a podcast here. We work for OWC, even though we're not trying to be salesy people. I'm not going to say that every episode, I promise. But
You keep saying it, man,
I
and
know.
it's like
It's
it gets more sus
like I'm all parent.
every time.
I know. Pretty soon I'm going to show up here and I'm going to be like, I'm promising to not promote just our company the whole time, but I'm going to be wearing like an OWC hat and a t-shirt and maybe like a
Just
scarf around my neck.
Over time, just like more and more
Yeah.
articles of clothing.
I'm going to get a mic flag that's an OWC branded one.
Yeah, 100%. It's coming.
Well, today is pretty cool because I've been wanting to do an episode for a while where we get to just dork out on video games big
Yeah,
time. Both of us are gamers. I would say the games that I'm playing right now, I was on a big Call of Duty kick until about a year ago, and then I kind of burnt myself out on it. I got
it's
super
easy to
good,
do.
dude. I was hitting in the top 3 in multiplayer sessions.
What was your KD?
Dude, I don't even know it was so good.
You don't know. You were good at Call of Duty. You don't even know what your KD was.
I know. That's the thing. I'm too ADHD to keep track of the details. I just know I would show up in the top 3 every time we get done with a match. And the key is.
Do you know what I mean by KD?
Kill
death ratio.
Kill death ratio. Okay.
I mean, were you like a 2 or like between 1 and 2?
It would depend on the time of day. Usually it was, I think between 1 and 2.
As the day drew on, as it got closer to like 8 or 9 o'clock, I was slipping.
Yeah,
then it like 1.2, 1.1.
Yeah, eventually it was like 1.10. But dude, the key to those games,
I would be thrilled with a 1.
Especially if you want to beat the asses of all the 13-year-olds that are on there schooling everybody, is you just got to play those levels so many times that you can anticipate all the spawn points, know where to lob grenades, because there's always a high chance that there's going to be at least 4 enemies around the corner. And that was like how I survived there. Were you ever a big like first person shooter guy?
Yeah, so we played it. This is back in the Xbox 360 days.
Mm-hmm.
We were the game that I played the most was of all the Call of Duties. Was back in college when Call of Duty 4, when Modern Warfare, the original one came out. We played that a lot, and then we also played the first Black Ops whenever that came out.
Yeah.
And yeah, man,
Black Ops was a great series until they got to I can't remember which Black Ops it was, but all of a sudden a Black Ops came out where everything was like exaggerated and cartoony, almost like Street Fighter characters, but I can't remember which one it was.
Yeah.
It was like 4 or 5.
I think that was probably by the time where you had like silly games kind of like Fortnite, where it was like the battle royale kind of thing brought that cartoonishness to it, where people were like preferring maybe the less like realistic war type stuff.
Like I didn't want the anime version of a soldier. Like I wanted to actually look like a soldier, not look like Blanca from Street Fighter, you know?
I want this to be historically vague, but also accurate. Like I don't want.
I'm really picky. It's just, it's one of those things.
Do you remember? Okay, so like in the Call of Duty heyday of like, I guess like multiplayer to be more specific, because obviously like the original entries in the series were very like World War II centric, and then they did Modern Warfare, and then like after Modern Warfare became a hit, and then I think after 2 came out, that's when they did let's go back to World War II.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember the name of that one though. It was the one where zombies first came on the scene. It was the very first Call
Oh,
of Duty
yeah,
game
and that's
with
what
because
that
they were Nazi zombies.
yeah, and they would give you the option of either doing the other stuff or the zombie track
Yeah, yeah,
in the
yeah.
game, yeah.
And people loved the zombies thing, and then that became kind of like a thing that they started putting in. Really, the Black Ops series, I think, is
Yeah,
where that transitioned to. But the first game that it was on was like the first one in the modern era of
yeah.
Call of Duty, where they went back to World War II. And like I remember everyone was like super excited to go back to like World War II type stuff, and then immediately were like, "Yeah, this is terrible. These
Yeah.
guns are so slow." Like shooting with like a what is that? An M7, I think, an M7 rifle. Gosh, I probably sound like a moron. And now I want to know if I'm like right about it. But anyway, like like the standard issue rifle in that game was the M1, not the M7, the
M1,
M1.
yeah.
The M1 Garand. Yeah, so sorry, history buffs. So yeah, the M1 Garand, and it's like, oh wait, dead. Like
I
immediately, it
know.
just kind of like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, this
it was
dude
just
and
very slow.
the zombie tracks, especially on the early games, and honestly, even on some of the later games, they made that shit almost impossible to get past, like, the
Yeah,
5th or 6th wave. All of a sudden, it would just click over to, like, 1,000 zombies breaking through all of the different windows and doors and crap
that
like
was a
that.
thing for a little while too,
Yeah.
right? Like, and I don't know exactly the timeline of how it, but I do know another game that was really big around that time
Yeah.
was Left 4 Dead, like the first Left 4 Dead
That
game.
was great. I actually really
So and
enjoyed
that
that one.
so the whole kind of like waves of monsters and co-op, that became kind of like a thing at that point. And
Yeah.
yeah, of in that game, the zombies mode, the Nazi zombies mode, was by far the most fun, because the guns kind of added the fact that the guns were so slow
Yeah.
added to kind of like the challenge
Yeah, you had to
and
be
everything else
literally
like that.
running around and jumping in the air constantly to, like while you're
Just
waiting for
dolphining.
your stuff to, reload, you know what I mean? So
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, so I played a lot in college, and then I got real burned out because I don't know. It's just
it'll
at a certain point, it stops being fun, and then
yeah,
I've never reached the time put in
yeah,
again in college, because you have to just play so much just to like enjoy it. Like,
yeah,
not to like, I'm gonna be really good at this game. I'm gonna play so long
yeah,
that, like, if you want to be really really good, for me anyway, I just have to play it and play it and play it like hours on end.
yeah.
Like my buddy would play for 8 hours a day,
Yeah, well, you
and he
gotta,
was
like
incredible
you
at it.
you gotta map out all the, once you map the levels in your head and you're used to them, like we were talking about earlier, then you can start becoming effective, but to do that and get to the point where it's almost like muscle memory, it's not even something you're consciously thinking about anymore,
Yeah,
you gotta reach, like, Dork Con level 6
it's a lot of time.
to get
It's a lot of
there.
time to put in it. Yeah, so
Yeah,
on those
yeah,
first person shooters, it really is. I mean, it's a lot of it too is kind of like, it's almost like a psychological understanding of how like mice run through a maze. Like, after you
totally.
watch all these other players who are not as good as you, and you know that, oh, typically people go left
Yeah.
when the level starts, and
Yeah, the
so
flow
if
of
you want to pick them
traffic.
off, yeah.
Yeah, like, there's one level that every gamer knows that plays Call of Duty called Shipment, and it was
Oh god, shipment is fun. Yeah,
dude, Shipment, I just turned into a crackhead for that level, and I always waited because you know how sometimes they'll do, like, special, uh, event settings or level settings where, like, nothing but Shipment?
yeah.
I was always waiting for those to come out so that I was just playing Shipment and, like, all of a sudden dude, all of a sudden, like, 3 or 4 hours have gone by, and I'm literally just been running in circles in this thing, like, lobbing grenades the same way every time, grabbing the same weapons the same way every time, and I'm like, "I'm not even literally conscious of what I'm playing right now. Am I
Right.
getting enjoyment out of this? I don't even know what I'm doing right now."
My favorite thing to do, the first Black Ops that came out,
Yeah.
the most fun that I ever had playing Call of Duty was playing multiplayer on Xbox Live, but just like we would limit it to kind of like our group of friends, and
Yeah.
we would play cops and robbers, but uh, only with throwing knives.
Oh, okay.
So like the cops and robbers game
Yeah.
I don't know, I can't remember how scoring goes, but basically it was like the throwing knives.
Right.
It's almost like 21, basically. I think Cops and Robbers, or like maybe we were playing 21, but it was like whatever the game mode is, where it's like you have to hit a certain score first by 2, and if you get killed, that person takes your points,
Yeah.
essentially. I can't remember the game mode, but we used to
Yeah.
do that a lot, and that was a lot of fun just with throwing knives. And then like doing that in like a place like on a map like Shipment or Nuketown.
Nuketown was super fun,
It's really
dude. I
fun.
played the
Yeah.
crap out of that. Once I got burnt out on the first person shooter thing, especially in that series, I w I was kinda didn't know what else to play for a while, and so it just so happened that I saw some kinda commercial or whatever, or an ad for Diablo 4, and I was like, "Yes, that is my out. I'm jumping
I didn't start
right
that
into
series
this."
until 3. So like I had friends growing up who were all about, and these are very different games, but like StarCraft and
Y
Diablo.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And because I did not have like a nice enough computer whenever I was a kid to play one of those games,
Yeah.
because you really had to, those were computer games. They weren't
Yeah.
like console
I
games.
mean, bro,
They
you
are
needed at
now.
least a DX2 66 to do that, so
Right, right, right.
or Pentium
Uh
75 or whatever.
Pentium 75. Yeah, that was a big year for Pentium and Celeron.
Celeron, yes.
Celeron, that was a word that people use to describe processors. I did not have like a great family room PC that was
Yeah.
good enough to play like games like that. So anyway, I think in my head I always lumped Diablo in with StarCraft, and StarCraft is like a strategic
Yeah, that's more,
uh, real-time
real-time
strategy game.
strategy, yes.
Diablo is a dungeon crawler
Yeah.
and I did not know until Diablo 3 came out, and I had a computer. I had like an iMac, so it was barely enough to play it. But my buddy was like, "You should play Diablo." This is one of my friends that played Call of Duty with in college. In
Yeah.
college, he was like, You want to play Diablo with us?" And I was like, "I've never played that game, and I don't like StarCraft and stuff like that." And he was like, "No, dude, it's a completely different type of game. Like we're
Yeah,
just gonna and it is such a fun game to play with other people, like
totally.
over voice chat, and to like get together and kind of like a clan
Well,
with 2 or 3
it's like that
people.
old
And
arcade game, Gauntlet. To me, it's kinda
yeah,
like that, where it's
it
like that
is.
overhead view, you can totally have your homies in there with you, like, conquering stuff, or you can do it yourself. It's way harder by yourself, but
It just clicked to me because like I'm a huge Zelda
me too,
fan
yeah.
from all the way back to like the original game.
I didn't like the
Uh,
side-scrolling Zelda, though. When Link all of a sudden, Link's like a
like
teenager, and he looks like an NBA basketball player walking, like, side scroller, I'm like, I don't know, I miss, like
which game specifically?
it
Like
was I think it might have been the second one?
Link to the Past? Like, are we talking about like NES, the original, or Super
Yes.
NES?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, see, like I played those, but I was too young to like know what was going on. I had an NES. My first console was an Atari, uh,
Okay.
2600.
Yeah, well, yeah, okay. Well, that's old
I
school,
mean, I'm
dude.
37, so like that was old when I got it, but it was just like my
Yeah.
dad would bring home, like people would be at work and they're like, my kids don't want this anymore. Like, will you give me $20 for it? And so like that's how I got my Atari, and
Yeah.
so I played River Raid
Oh, yeah?
and Berserk,
Yep.
and Pac-Man and all those
Defender.
like those old Atari games. I
Yeah.
think it's 2600, right? The
Yeah.
2600 was the like the wood paneled one. Yeah, the
Yep.
2600. So I still have my 2600. It's here at the house somewhere. So that was my first, and then I got an NES, and then I got a Genesis
Dope.
because I bought into the Nintendo marketing. But yeah, so my first Zelda experience was on NES. I skipped Super Nintendo, and so then I came back on Nintendo 64 and
Yeah.
Ocarina of Time. So like that's Zelda to me is Ocarina of Time,
Okay.
basically.
Gotcha. Yeah, the first one was, like, my jam, big time, and then, honestly, my first exposure to that type of game was Adventure on Atari.
Oh yeah, I have Adventure.
You had those different color castles,
Yeah.
and you had to find the key to get into the next castle and get into the next
right?
one, and there was, like, a dragon in there somewhere, so it's been a really long
That's
time.
literally
Yeah.
that is like if you were gonna describe Zelda to somebody, it'd be like you have to find the key,
Yes.
and you just
Yeah.
nest that
And
over and
and
over. So
I
like,
and I actually I spent no, I didn't spend, I got my mom to spend way too much money on a walkthrough booklet for Zelda so I could see where all, like, the secret like, you turn
yeah,
over this thing, and now you get, like, 8,000,000 of the coins or whatever it was,
yeah.
but
Those guides were. I mean, because like again, I was buying them for definitely. I had an Ocarina of Time guide that
mhm.
man, boy, did I get that $30 or whatever it cost
Dude, it was
out of
great.
that
Yeah,
thing.
mine was worn out. I was playing that game all the time.
Ocarina of Time, there was like a side quest where you had to like find all these bugs.
Yeah,
And I was just like, this would have been impossible if
yeah,
someone didn't write all of this down. Like, why even go through the trouble of doing this
yeah.
if it was going to be this impossible? It'd be like literally someone saying, "Hey, go out in your hometown and find all 56 bugs that I've hidden." Like,
Yep,
what? Like that would be
totally.
freaking impossible unless someone said, "But I'll let you. You still have to go find the bugs, but if you pay me $30,
Yeah.
I'll tell you where they are." And you're like, "Sign me up."
Dude, yeah. You have so much to show for that money spent too.
I have to find the bugs.
Yeah,
My wife played. If we're talking about completionism, if you're like a completionist whenever you're
yeah,
playing a game,
yeah, it's
I
main I do main storyline,
yeah,
and then what I do is I get far a certain, like, length into the main storyline, and then I try to, like, knock out a bunch of side things, and then I go back to the main storyline, but the eventual
yeah,
goal, even though with some of the more complicated games, I still haven't finished it because I just kinda burned myself out on it, or there's, like, a couple bugs, like in Skyrim, there's some bugs where, like, you just can't finish this quest
dude.
because, like, the guy that you're supposed to talk to accidentally got killed by a creature when you went in there, and now you're kinda hosed, you know what I mean?
The that literally happened. Again, I would not consider myself like a strict completionist. I prefer it. I would prefer to 100% the game and to
Yeah.
see everything and to do everything. Um, my wife is a completionist. Like she will not stop until she does it. But the thing is like she's just like she can finish games really quickly. I don't know how she does it.
Mm.
But like like for instance, there was at least one game in the Batman Arkham series, which are some of my favorite games, uh, where I was like, yeah, I'm not doing all that. And then but she did, and it
Yeah.
annoyed me to no end. But like I have limits to what like I'm not I don't if your side quest is go find all the voice recordings, I'm already annoyed that I have to listen to these voice recordings.
Right.
Like I don't want
Yeah.
to listen. Like I'm freaking Batman. The last thing I want to do is be listening to some like voice recording that the Riddler left.
I know.
That's just stupid.
And Fallout
Um
Fallout does that too, where, like, you have to go somewhere and you don't get to move on to the next phase or check that side quest off your list
yeah,
until you have listened to the recording, that you go get. I forget what they're called. I
right.
should know the name of it, but,
The Spider-Man games are like that too. There's all kinds of like
and you don't even have to listen to the whole thing. That's what's stupid is, like, I hit play and then it says, "Oh, you just da 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 da," and then I just move on to the next thing. I didn't even really listen to it, and yeah,
no.
there's a couple other games like that recently where I'm like, "Do I really have to click through this entire freaking dialogue?" And there's no way to speed it up. There's no way to bypass it. You're gonna make me
Right.
like, that's one thing that got me off of the fantasy, what are they called?
Final Fantasy?
Yes.
RPGs?
Oh my gosh. The
Well, it's
amount
but
of
dude, that's but
dialogue was
well, that's all it
insane.
is. That's all it
I
is.
know.
Like I'm not a I've never been a big Final Fantasy person because and I what's really weird is like RPGs have to for me have to have some kind of mix of combat. I need to be able to at some point do something. Like and I don't want to do turn based. I don't like turn based RPGs either, like Final Fantasy, where
Yeah.
it's like or Pokemon for some reason I can stomach that, but I don't know that I've ever finished a Pokemon game.
Yeah.
Maybe one of the ones on Game Boy. But again, it's like I'm I just don't my attention span whenever it comes to games is very like fast twitch. Like I want to be Like for instance, Call of Duty. If I'm gonna die, I better come back real fast.
Yeah,
Like I'm not one of these people that's kind of like I die and then I have to wait 3 minutes to come back. Like no, like I don't want to play that game.
yeah,
Like because yeah, I know that I'm not going to be good enough. And that's the other thing is like I'm not great at video games in general. I play a lot of them, but I really prefer. And I think this is mainly because of Zelda. I love Zelda. I love games like that. I love one of the reasons why I've never really been able to keep an Xbox for very long is because like I prefer like adventure or like platforming games
yeah, yeah.
like Zelda or RPG adventure
Yeah,
games
that
like
like you
Zelda
want some
real time
depth,
or not.
some like
Yeah,
depth to the story and like
open
things you
open
can do.
world games
Yeah, I love
and
those
yeah,
too.
like
Yeah.
I'm down with spending 60 hours on a game. And like I love the Spider-Man games. I love and as time has gone on, obviously they've mixed more and more of those RPG elements into kind of like
Yeah.
the platformer games where you're upgrading things and you're looking for stuff. And so
Yeah.
like yeah, so I love all that stuff like that. But like for an instance, on the completion thing, like when I get stubborn about it, I do increase my chances of burning out. And like the prime example of that was the God of War, the reboot God of War.
Okay.
Oh my
That
god,
was
such a good
PlayStation. That's
game.
PlayStation only, right?
PlayStation 4, yeah, yeah,
4,
and
yeah.
5. And man, one of the like look, the Spider-Man games and God of War, if you looked at my time on PlayStation 4 and 5, it has to be 80% God of War and Spider-Man. I mean, I've been playing I played the first Spider-Man game for like 6 years or however long that was out. Like they kept adding DLC
Yeah,
and
that's
I
the
would go back
problem.
in.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh gosh, I love those games. I love the Infamous games, and PlayStation has like way more of these platformer adventure type
I know.
narrative games than
I
Xbox
know
does, and
Xbox
Nintendo has them too.
Xbox tends to have a lot of the like has some really amazing games, but it also has like the library of just like goofball stuff, like
Like why? What?
tons
I
of
don't.
them.
What?
And I'm
What
like, I
has
wouldn't
happened with their
download
exclusives?
yeah,
Like
like
they
I
don't have them
wouldn't
anymore.
download any of those games. And so there's like this small handful of like amazing games that are like super immersive, like Mass Effect and stuff like that, which we're gonna get
Yeah.
to shortly. But like everything else is like, oh, come download, Toodles McNoodles. That's the video game where you run around and you jump around on a bowl of spaghetti and you catch meatballs from the air. And everybody's like, and you look at the rating and it's like super high and it's super
Yeah.
popular. And I'm like,
What was the
what?
name of the game? So Among Us, I think, was a perfect example of that. Where it's
Uh,
like, we're all playing what? Why are we doing this?
so late, dude.
It's so fun if you're all on the couch together.
Yeah,
It's fun. It
yeah,
really is. Like if you're all on like an iPad or
yeah.
Switch or whatever. Everybody's playing. Great. But like what was the other one where it was like it was like a little race game where you had all these little cutesy little characters that are all like running and trying to get to the end. Nintendo
Uh,
knocked it off with Kirby, and I can't remember the name of it now.
oh, yeah.
The
I
big
can't remember
race
the name of it. Yeah, I know what you're
foot race
talking
game.
about.
Anyway, like a
Yeah,
ton of people were playing that. Yeah, and those things tend to take off big time
yeah.
on Xbox. But like Xbox just does not have
It's weird. Yeah,
nearly the exclusives that PlayStation has, and
yeah.
it seems to just not be a priority for them. Or they've tried a couple of times, and the games just flop whenever they try to do the exclusive. But like Sony, I mean, I don't know. Like God of War, like I said, God of War and Spider Man, those are both exclusives. I think Spider Man's still an exclusive, unless. See, like Sony has started to license some of its games to Xbox now because I think they're never coming back. So we
Yeah.
might as well make some money on that console
Yeah,
too.
dude.
you know,
Dude, make your enemies your friends too if you can get some cash out of them. And
okay, I forgot. I God of War,
yes.
right? Completionist, etc. So love the game. Got to this. Got to the Niflheim realm. So it's like one of the 9 realms, right? According to Norse mythology. I get to Niflheim. Niflheim is literally like in God of War, it's like a maze.
Yeah.
And the maze is like full of all these rooms, and you have to like defeat all the enemies in this room, and then you can move on to the next room. And there's all this stuff like in the game that's kind of like in there. It's not it's like you visit as part of the narrative,
Yeah.
and then at that point they're like, all right, you can leave now. now that part of the story is done, or you can like get all this extra stuff that's like scattered throughout this
Yeah.
maze.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, well, of course I'm going to go get all the stuff because there's an armor
Yeah.
there was an armor set in Niflheim that I really really wanted, and it's still to me it's like the best armor set in the game. It like reduces damage, but then as you got the armor, you became more resistant. The other thing with this level is that it's full of like this gas that is like noxious
Oh, so
and it kills you.
you're constantly on the run and you're in a rush to, like,
Yes,
do
you're in a
everything.
rush
I
to
hate those
kill all
kinds
the
of levels,
baddies.
dude. Those levels
Right.
make me super stressed out.
Yeah, but it's fun. So it's like a oh, and then there was like this pattern to it. It's like you had to move like this way when you were at this point, and then you could move that way to like the rooms were easier to like progress through with like these certain patterns, and it would kind of change based on
Right.
different certain areas. Anyway, so I got like real like it's grinding. So this is a grind level where you're just like it's kind of like Diablo where it's just kind of like, well, if I'm going to get through this, I've got to just get really good at this level, or I've got to collect to get the armor pieces. I've got to collect enough souls or whatever else,
Yeah.
like I've
Yeah.
got to I'm doing this action over and over and
Yeah.
over so that I can pay for this armor piece. And then once I get that, I'm going to pay for the next armor piece. And like, bro, it burnt me out. I was just kind of like, I stopped playing the game for like 6 months. I was like, I'm done. I don't even want to play anymore.
You're like,
Like,
"I'm gonna go look at the trees and the sun and maybe
yes,
experience some
exactly.
wind." Yeah, totally.
And like 6 months later, I was like, shit, I don't even remember what's going on in the game. Like, I don't remember. Like, I just wanted to finish the story. And like, I was literally
Yeah.
like, am I allowed to just finish the story and
Yeah.
not finish Niflheim? And I can't even remember now. I got if I did most of it. And I
Yeah.
was kind of like, I think we're okay. We're just going to
Yeah.
move on. And
I
we're
burned
not
my
going to get the very last chest or whatever
the
it was. And
completionist really gets you when like with some of the medieval stuff. So with Skyrim and Diablo actually, I was always obsessed with like beating the entire game, side quests included, but with every single character class.
oh, yeah, I don't have that affliction
Oh, I
at
do. It's
all.
terrible.
Like
I'm gonna be a
I have
druid.
my one class
Yeah.
that I really really enjoy playing with, and it's usually like barbarian because the
Yeah.
barbarians
They
just
can
kind of like
usually
I hit
just
hard, I
yeah.
hit things hard. I don't want to cast spells from afar or do
Yeah,
any of that.
but
Like again,
I
I
have to
get bored.
say, because I'm the same way. I always start with like the paladin or somebody that can just start wielding weapons and like killing things.
Just want to go
I don't
upside
have
their
time
heads
for
with this
magic and
mace.
shit, but I did I did take a long break from Skyrim, and then I went back and chose one of the like magic oriented,
Yeah,
characters.
yeah,
And you're super weak at first, but then all of a sudden, like you get to a certain point where you can dual wield spells and they're super strong.
yes.
You can go anywhere, dude, and you're like you're like the bears on Skyrim were always taking me out if I happen to not notice it just because they're hard to kill. And then all of a sudden out of nowhere, just like one zap and like animals are flying everywhere. Nobody can kill me. Any of the enemies come up to me, it's like they're toast immediately. But
If you ever hear someone in the other room just clicking a mouse like click 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 click, 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 that's literally they're playing Diablo. That's all that they could be
totally,
doing.
totally,
Because
yeah.
they're just clicking the mouse to attack, and then every once in a while they're casting the spells sequentially, and then waiting for them to recharge, and
Yeah.
then casting. My whole thing with Diablo is like finish the story. Obviously, I don't really have the completionist streak in me. I do like leveling up, and I like finding like the really rare stuff. And see, like that's to me what's fun. The most fun I've ever had playing Diablo is playing with people, because then you can like share stuff that you've found with each other and level up faster, and so
Yep.
that's a lot of fun. But
Yep.
like, I don't obviously we're all of my friends are now in their late 30s, and we don't have like the time to like, hey, what time are you gonna be on
I know.
tonight? That's like I'm going to bed.
So many
That's
times I tried to like group up with friends or they would do the same for me. Like, oh, you play Call of Duty on Xbox? Yeah, dude, we should link up. What's your name? And like we'd all eventually add each
one
other's
time.
names
Yeah.
and then never actually
Never
play
play
together
together.
because it's like,
That's 100% never
well,
play together.
I'm having dinner and I had a late meeting at
Yeah.
work and now I got to go hang out with the kids for a little bit. And man, and then you get to the time when you're supposed to now log on and put your headset on. And it's like, dude, I'm
And you
fried,
feel like
bro.
you've
Yeah.
gotta like when you do that, you feel like you've gotta be on. Like if
Yeah.
I don't know, it feels like you're performing for one another. Like you're like you gotta be you gotta Sorry, my dogs just like one of them freaked the other one out, and the one just like split. If you heard that loud crashing sound, um,
Uh,
yeah, you feel like you got to be on and like performing and cracking jokes and stuff like that, and really like
and
this,
just
it usually
burnt.
just it's
Yeah.
just two people looking like this,
I know.
like
Especially
because
if you've had a couple cocktails, you're like, "Dude, I'm really tired now. I need
but
to,
like
like."
also it was probably like just to like it's one thing to be like I'm at home with my family and I've identified a open spot where nobody wants me to do anything and I don't have to do anything and the
Yeah.
kid's homework is done or she's getting ready for bed or whatever else and now I can go do whatever I want. You've identified that time and then you just go do it.
Yep.
Uh that is different from I have to do that and it also has to match up whenever that time is now available for another person so that we can do it at the same
Yeah.
time. And, like, the amount of effort that takes
Yeah.
completely negates any,
Yeah.
enjoyment
You only got so
that you're
many.
gonna get out of doing video games
Yeah.
together.
Once full on adulting hits, it's really hard to be willing to sacrifice time after work, and
Yeah.
on the weekends in particular, I'm so stingy with my time. So many friends that are like, "Bro, you never wanna hang out, you know, we're, like, barbecuing every weekend and we're doing this." I'm like, "Yeah, but that means I have to put it in my calendar, and all throughout the week, I have to put things in my calendar, and I kinda don't wanna have anything in my calendar
And also,
on
I just wanna sit
Saturday."
on the couch and look at my
Yeah.
phone.
Seriously, I'm gonna stay in my pajamas all day and, like, sip
Yeah.
on coffee, and that's why I can't wait till the winter really hits this year.
Yeah, and see, like, I'm still super into and we were gonna talk about this too, but, like, I'm still super into, like, all the new game systems and the
Yeah.
hardware and,
Love
like,
it.
what's happening. I'm still tuned into it and, like, super excited about it. I mean, literally, I don't play games nearly this much, but there was a time in the last 3 years where I owned a Nintendo Switch, an Xbox Series
Mm.
X, a PlayStation 5, and a Steam Deck.
Oh, whoa.
Okay. And I was like, man, Steam Deck, what a great idea. That sounds really awesome. And I was like, oh, wait, this is a lot of effort to like get stuff on here. And I'm like, why wouldn't I? I don't want to play this game on a
Yeah.
Steam
How
Deck.
much of my
The
life
Steam,
do I wanna give to this
yeah,
entire effort,
I
you
like
know?
things on the TV. Like that's where I'm at my most kind of like chill. And I want to like, and again, because I really kind of consume video games almost like movies.
Yeah,
Like
I'm
I
the
really
same.
enjoy the story
Yeah, me too.
and stuff like
I've
that. And
been
I'm not good enough to do competitive stuff.
Yeah, me neither. Yeah.
I don't really
Especially,
enjoy it.
you can get your ass kicked by a 12-year-old in seconds on most of those games, you know,
Oh,
the
for sure.
competitive
So wait,
stuff, so
what was your first console?
Atari
Okay.
26. I had a Pong game.
Like the dedicated Pong game?
Yeah, where it
I had
had
the 2600. I had the paddles.
I didn't even I had the one before the paddles where
It was just Pong.
it was just like 2 knobs, one on each side, and you had a person
Oh,
on
yeah,
each
yeah, yeah.
side standing there touching the same device, turning knobs to, like, slide the little thing back and forth, you know?
Yeah. See,
Uh,
I had Pong. The Atari came that my dad got came with everything. It
yeah,
had the joysticks and then it also had the Pong because the Pong paddles you could use in games like Super Breakout,
yeah.
where Super Breakout, you've probably if you don't know what
I
Super Breakout
remember. Yeah,
is,
I remember.
you probably have played it because it's
Yeah.
literally they invented the whole idea of like there's a little line under
That's like
here and then you
yeah.
knock the ball up into all the colored bricks
That's
and
like
stuff like
Pong
that.
on, like, super steroids, you know?
Yeah,
But
and
this
it's one
time
player Pong
exactly.
essentially.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Super
But
Breakout and River Raid was my favorite game though.
River Raid's
And
super
then
fun.
so did you went to NES?
Went to NES and then super got like most people, got way hooked on Mario Brothers and then,
Yeah.
a few other games, and then Super NES, and then eventually PlayStation 1,
Okay.
and then, so on and so forth, and then I've just been mainly an Xbox guy since the
So what did you
first
play on
Xbox came out.
on the first PlayStation? Cuz see like I missed I went from Nintendo 64 to PlayStation 2
Twisted Metal,
and
bro.
okay, right. So like there's all these like great incredible games that
Twisted
like I didn't
Metal,
really
I
have.
played, like, so much that
I played it
game.
at Walmart on the little
On the
Like this,
demo, the
like
one where the controllers in the demo in a public place are just like the buttons or just don't even
and
respond to anything, they're just like
they felt
jelly.
like they had to put the TV like so high in the air that it was almost like behind you. You're just
I
like,
know, and you pick up the
this is
controllers and they're sticky, and
oh
all the
yeah,
buttons don't even
right.
have any, like, spring to them anymore, they're just, like, sitting there inside the hardware device, just
Dude,
beat down, yeah.
to quote Inside Out, a core memory for me is the first time I ever played Nintendo 64 was at our local Sears
Oh,
store.
Sears,
That was the
wow.
first place that had it. We literally went to Sears just so I could see the Nintendo 64, and play it for the first time. So,
Oh,
like,
okay.
they had the Mario 64 demo on it. Uh, and yeah, like, the Nintendo 64 made me happier than I think well, I don't know, the PlayStation 2 was a pretty big deal as well.
That
I'm
yeah.
getting both of those for Christmas was, like,
Once
a huge
once I
freaking deal.
switched to PlayStation 1, I kinda didn't go back to Nintendo other than, like,
You're
the
right.
older games and stuff, and then, PlayStation 2 came, and that was cool, and then, that's when the Xbox, I think, started to hit,
Yeah.
and then right then I
Yep.
was like, "Oh my god, this is a cool unit, I love the bright green, it looks all alien," and then,
Yeah, it's
like
very cool.
and now I
Mhm.
think that the first Xbox that came out was the one where they, right out of the gate, they had, like, better graphics and stuff than the PlayStation 2, and so a lot of people switched over, and then that's when
Yeah.
Microsoft was like, "Oh,
People
yeah, here
forget
we go," you know?
that technically the most powerful system of that generation was the Nintendo GameCube.
Technically, yes. The
I did not have
library
have
was
it.
kinda limited, and I thought that the industrial design of that thing was a little bizarro, and
It was
the
a little odd. It was very
yeah.
strange. They were like, "CDs? Nah, we're gonna do tiny
Yeah.
CDs that don't hold nearly as much, like, data as, like, normal sized d sorry, they were DVDs technically, but
Yeah,
tiny little proprietary DVDs." I don't know.
yeah.
Nintendo's always been like, that generation, though, they were like they went all in terms of making the most powerful system,
Yeah.
and they did it,
Yep.
right? And then nobody bought it.
Yeah.
And then they were like, "Why would we do that ever again? We're gonna take off the shelf, and we're gonna focus on like our games and
Yes.
producing excellent games, and graphics are just we're not gonna worry about
Like,
that ever again."
stop experimenting with hardware looks and vibes and new types of ways to, like, design it. Just give us the thing that we know how to use already, playing video games, like a
Yeah,
decent controller and a decent console, and stop making things all, like, weird and cool and unique to Nintendo, you know, it's like they went a little bit far
right.
with that, I felt like, but,
Yeah, and
so
they just really started focusing on like trying to redefine. I mean, and look, the Wii was
the
amazing,
Wii was cool. The Wii
and
was
I'm
cool.
so glad that they because there was a point where they'd be like, "Oh, every we have to do the Wii forever now," and they really didn't like buy into that. They were just kind of like, "Nah, we kind of think like the next version of gaming is kind of figuring out how do we combine." And I think the reason that they were able to make this leap
Yeah.
because you could have seen Nintendo going like, "Oh, motion-based gaming. That's just what we have to do now, right? Like we
Right.
have to be the Wii forever." But they didn't, and I think it's because of the success of the Nintendo DS. Like
Yeah.
the DS was just wildly successful, millions and millions and millions and hundreds of millions sold.
Yeah.
And I think that they saw like, man, like if we could get as many people to buy the normal console as buy the DS, if we could combine those markets to where, hey, this is a console you can play anywhere. You can
Yep.
plug it into the TV at home, and you can see the power to that. And then obviously the limiting factor now with that is just kind of I I do think they should have done more with the Switch over time, but at the same time, it's like
Yeah.
they're still selling them like crazy. Like
Yeah.
people are still buying Nintendo Switches, so like why?
They're buying them, but it's a very niche market, like, there's a bunch of people that are really into it, and then
But everybody still has their Switch.
totally. I've never had a desire ever to buy that handheld device. Like, I remember when I worked for a startup called Tapwave, and they were trying to create a gaming handheld gaming device using the Palm OS.
Oh boy.
It was and it could have been cool, but, just didn't work out for reasons that I won't go into because I know a lot of the people that
We're
work there, but
we don't
that
wanna yeah.
right when they came out with it, they were trying to be too controlling with how fast we rolled out features and stuff, and then the Sony PSP came out right at the
Oh,
same
well,
time and just blew it out of the water. I'm like,
game
this little
over.
startup using a Palm OS for a gaming
Yeah,
platform, it
no.
had some cool
The PSP
titles,
was
but then the PSP came
amazing.
out and it was like, "Oh, okay, I guess our startup is done now."
PSP and PS Vita were legitimately incredible.
Yeah.
I remember playing the God of War games on the PSP and
It
Vita
looked
and just being
amazing.
like, "Oh my
Yeah, this
god."
is in my hand right now. Yeah, totally.
Mhm.
Well,
Yeah.
hey, let's switch gears. What we were intending to talk about, and now that we've chatted for 40 minutes about everything because we're
It's very
ADHD like
important to
that.
get our, gaming credentials
Yeah.
and everything,
Yeah, we
like,
gotta show
out of the
people that we're
way.
not completely clueless here about that stuff.
Yeah. No.
But people should also know that Wayne and I will literally talk for 3 hours before we even start recording sometimes. So,
Hey, we should get on the podcast and talk about this, and then, like, we won't start talking about it until 45
yeah,
minutes in, but
exactly. It's pretty normal, but hey, it's better than having somebody that doesn't talk at all on their own podcast.
right.
Why have a
What a
podcast?
terrible podcast.
Right.
I refuse to speak on this podcast.
So, the the main topic was so what kind of kicked this off was we're going to go over some of the worst video game movie adaptations out there ever, which there are quite a few. There's a couple great ones, but we're going to
We've
cover.
got some good ones, like, we're on a roll kind of with, like, the game adaptations in terms of, like I mean, you've had the Sonic movies, and then you've
Yep.
had, some good, TV shows, and
Well, in the
there's the
news,
BioShock TV show, and
yeah, BioShock was great. And in the news recently, I saw that because of the Fallout success with the show adaptation of the game, which I have not watched, I still need to watch that because I do love the games. Is there's going to be Amazon is going to do Mass Effect. And dude, I have to
yeah.
say, as like a scarce, sparse, spacey vibe obsessed person, whether it's film or video games, I'm excited and scared at the same time because I love the video game series so much. But if they plug in just a bunch of crap, then I'm gonna be like super sad.
Right, right.
Because there's a part of me that like, oh, I gotta watch this show more than
Mass
Fallout,
Effect
more than
is a
anything
series
else.
that I've been meaning to play for years, and I just never did. I did not play the original ones, and I haven't played any of the modern ones or any of that,
Yeah.
but, like, uh
I've played them all, beat them all. The music actually is what hooked me more than the gameplay. Like, yeah, you can
huh,
fly around and land on planets and do things, and there's missions and different aliens, and you can upgrade weapons, kind of the standard like open world stuff. But the music and the sound design in Mass Effect is just what sucked me in, man. Like
hmm,
it's so sparse and open, like the soundtracks and Blade Runner, and some it's
yeah,
there's actually a lot of there's a similar vibe to Blade Runner soundtrack in that just hooked me so hard, and so
hmm.
I highly recommend getting into that initially when you're new to the vibe and the environments and that. It feels a little bit complicated as far as switching weapons and stuff, but once you get used to it, you're just immersed, and it's really
What is
freaking cool.
the so what's the sto what if someone's never played Mass Effect, where should they start?
I would start with the first one.
How is that, like, available still? Like, can you still, like, download those,
I
and did they,
think
like,
so.
remaster them or something?
I think so. I would have to check. I'm not sure. It's been a long time. Um, I've been waiting for another Mass Effect game to come out, but it just never did, and that made me sad. And now they're making a show, so, so
Yeah.
whatever. But I would
Well, like
recommend if you can find, honestly, if you just grab the earliest of any of the Mass Effect ones that you can find within the network that you're using, whether it's Sony's or PlayStation or what have you, just go grab it and dive in and make sure you have a really great audio setup because it will
yeah, it looks like
totally
so there's the Legendary Edition, Mass Effect Legendary Edition. It's a compilation of the Mass Effect trilogy, Mass Effect 2, and Mass Effect 3.
get it.
So, yeah,
Worth it. Worth the
uh,
money, dude.
it was released for PlayStation 4, Windows, and Xbox One. Those are probably still
Yeah. It's a
available.
really amazing series, but they can turn that into a show. Um, some of the other stuff, the Fallout thing was a huge success. It actually like boosted sales of all the OG Fallout games just because the show was so good. I still haven't seen it yet. Have
Right.
you seen it?
Wait, I keep calling it BioShock. It was Fallout.
Okay,
I don't know why I'm
BioShock
calling it
did have
BioShock.
some kind
That's a
of
different game.
BioShock was cool too, but I think wasn't there a movie or a show BioShock had?
I love BioShock, and played it a lot. Fallout, I played Fallout 3 a little bit. My wife loves Fallout, the Fallout games.
Yeah, they're great.
And she also loves the Skyrim games too. Like
Yeah,
she played the hell out of those. But like again, like I'm just very like I get bored if I have to
yeah.
read too much. But I will play the Mario RPGs like Paper Mario and stuff like that. I love those because I
Okay.
just think I don't know, maybe it's just because they're silly and probably they move a little faster.
Yeah.
Um, another there was a what was the name of the it was a PlayStation 3
Well, The Last of Us was
alien.
like The Last of Us was the like, "Oh my gosh, somebody made like an amazing show around
Oh, the Last of Us I was telling you before we started recording.
yeah.
So that's some of the best TV that I've seen period. But here's the thing. The Last of Us is the very first one, and the second one's very good. I'm not a hater of the second game at all. I actually really like this, and then I understand people who don't like the second game because it's got some controversial elements
Yep.
in terms of like the story, the narrative. There are also people who hate on that game for dumb reasons. But if you don't like the story, I mean, I think that's a very valid reason. But not to get into any spoilers or anything, because I also don't want to spoil season 2 that's coming up
Right.
for anybody who likes the show. But the show is incredible, and the reason I was not surprised by the show being absolutely incredible is the fact that they brought in a lot of the same people that crafted the story in the game, and the game is one of the best stories. I would put the first game up there with like moments of some of my favorite movies
Yeah.
where the narrative is just so good, the voice acting was so good. I mean,
Yeah.
but it's just an incredible story. And you know what? I mean, like it's a zombie story, but like man, the first 30 minutes of that game are such an absolute gut punch. And I haven't spoken to one person who I've recommended the game to and been like, just wait 30 minutes in, and see if you're just not like if your jaw's not on the floor in
Yeah.
terms of like what you're feelings, like a video game making you feel feelings
Yeah, for
like a
characters and
show or
stuff,
a
yeah.
movie. So yeah, you should definitely play both of those games if you
I have
haven't. And there's
it's funny,
a ton of opportunities, but
I didn't even know about those games until I saw the show.
oh
Oh,
really?
yeah,
Really?
I was so
They're great games.
late to the Last of
Did
Us
you play the
party.
games yet? Have you played them?
No.
Oh, dude. Oh my God. Yeah, please go play
Okay,
that
I'll
game.
go this
Play
weekend,
at least play the first
I will
one.
download those guys this weekend for sure.
I'm telling you. Like I remember my brother-in-law up until a few years ago had not played them.
Yeah.
And so I was like, dude,
Yeah.
please play this
I'm on
game.
it.
And he was just like I remember he was an hour in, he was just like, "Oh my gosh. Like this game is so good." Like the story is so good.
I'm in.
The other game, one of my other favorite games, and you were talking about Mass Effect. BioShock is great, but I also really had like a soft spot for like Dead Space. Like Dead Space is a great
Dead Space was great. That
horror
was
game.
very frustrating. It was intense, especially
It
if
was frustrating. It was very much
but
like
dude, like
you didn't see it coming, so you're dead.
you didn't see it coming. There's like no ammo anywhere.
No ammo.
You're complete it's like they definitely played the scarcity thing down, but it almost turned into the same type of frustration that I had with that arcade game Dragon's Lair. Do you remember that?
Oh my god. Well,
There was like
so
a
I know of
cartoon.
Dragon's Lair, right?
So it was a
Yeah.
cartoon and you had to like flick the stick and do a thing within certain timing of a scene, otherwise you're gonna die. And I felt like in Dead
Yes.
Space, it was like the environment was cool, the audio was dope, definitely immersive. But I'm like, man, I'm so tired of dying. There's no quick save. There's no ammo. There's no health
Yeah.
anywhere. I was like,
Right.
dude, I'm not
See,
here to go to like boot camp in the military. And that's what I feel like I'm in right now.
but Mass Effect reminded me of Resistance. Did you ever play Resistance? Fall of Man? It
Yes.
was like a
Yeah.
PlayStation 3 exclusive
Yeah.
first person shooter.
That was a good one. Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
Loved it.
But
I don't remember what that got me off on that tangent. But anyway, yeah, so like some of the worst what were some of the worst games
so some of the
according to
ones
that list that we
that
were
we
talking
pulled
about
up, yeah. So
adapted into movies?
Super Mario Brothers.
Yeah,
Definitely awful. Like I was saying
that was number
earlier,
20.
I
So
love I love Bob Hoskins, but that was an awful movie, dude. That was
it's not
Oh,
his fault.
yeah, and John Leguizamo, I think he looks like he's 13 years old in that movie.
He really does.
Yeah, he probably
They were like,
was.
"Who could play Mario?"
Let's get him.
Bob Hoskins.
Yeah.
The casting was just also, but the whole movie was like they tried to do Blade Runner, but with Super Mario.
It was terrible, dude. It was
It
just
was so
oh my
weird.
god.
What a weird movie.
Yeah.
But higher on the list, somehow better than that, was Jake Gyllenhaal as the titular character in Prince of Persia.
I know. That was before they decided that it was a better idea to actually find somebody who was the ethnicity of the actual character in the movie. Instead, they essentially brown-faced him to be in that movie,
Essentially.
yeah.
Essentially.
Not just
Yeah.
essentially, but literally did that.
Just
Uh,
lots of bronzer.
that
It's
that
just bronzer.
that
Bronze face.
call it what you want, bro. Bronze face.
It was bronze face.
So, anyway, yeah, that was kinda silly, and he just looked overdone in that no matter what, regardless of the skin tones and stuff too, it just was totally overdone and silly looking.
There
The
were a bunch of movies on this list that I'd never even heard of the game, and
what
then,
yeah,
like, Street Fighter's on there.
yep,
The first Street Fighter movie, which to me is like that's ridiculous
yeah,
that that game would be that movie is also that movie is like up higher. It's the worst 20, number 20 on the list. So ostensibly, number 20 would be the best of all 20 movies, right? And number 20 was the Super Mario Brothers movie. And they're saying that the first Street Fighter movie is better than or worse because it's higher on the list.
yeah,
It's worse than the Super Mario Brothers movie. No,
yes. I know,
that's false.
right?
That's false. The Street Fighter movie is way better than the Super Mario Brothers movie.
They had, Far Cry, which I did not see that as a movie, and I do not think I would want to see that as a movie, to be
Gosh,
honest.
you know how great Far Cry 5 would be as a movie?
True, yeah. I did like how they had a homeboy from, well, I'm gonna say he's from, Better Call Saul or Breaking Bad, but, what's that guy's name? That actor, he was, like, the total badass
Aaron
in
Paul?
Breaking Bad. No, not Aaron Paul, it was the Esposito,
Oh, yeah, yeah. He was in Far Cry 6.
the
Giancarlo Esposito,
thank you,
right?
yeah, yeah, that guy is amazing, and I saw that he was in when I saw the cover of Far Cry 6, I was like, "That kinda looks like" sure enough, I didn't even realize it was actually him in the game. But they had
It's yeah, that was like the latest that for a little while they were doing that where they were just like scanning in actors.
yeah.
Lou Diamond Phillips is apparently in some new is it the new Call of Duty game? Like I just saw a commercial the other day and I was like, Lou Diamond Phillips? What?
Yeah, he'll be joined
This
by Emilio Estevez on the
Oh man, yeah, again.
they're
Yeah,
gonna
like
recreate Young Guns 2 on there, the movie, yeah.
Steve Gutenberg is like a tertiary character and like it's like what happened? Like is this like a thing that like you've got these former kind of like
I know.
recognizable movie people? I don't even call them stars. Like Lou Diamond Phillips was just like we all know who Lou Diamond Phillips is because of La Bamba,
Yeah,
and that's basically it.
and, they redid a whole bunch on here. So, do you remember that game Postal?
Okay, so I saw that. That's one of the ones where I was like, I don't know what that is.
So,
I've never.
Postal was one of the first more controversial, kind of lawless games in the vein, of, like, GTA. Like,
Oh,
you
so
ran
it's
around, dude, and
and
like,
you're a postal worker
well, you just
that's
went
gone crazy.
postal. And so you're, like, killing people, you're, like, causing all kinds of problems, you're just, like, destroying shit, and, like,
And the postal
that's
workers union was like, absolutely not.
yeah.
We're not having
Well,
this.
it took off. The movie did not take off because it was awful, I don't even know,
I never heard of this game.
yeah. It was not it was short-lived. I think they tried to do a postal it was around the time when Quake 1 was out.
97, so Doom, Quake.
Yeah, exactly. It was alright. It was fun to, like, play some fun little new thing for a hot minute, but it got old and boring really fast. You're like,
There were
"Okay."
4 of them.
I
And
didn't
the
get
final one was called No Regrets. Postal 4, No
Now
Regrets.
they did do a great job, just like GTA of playing on pop culture references and stuff. I will say that. There's tons of sarcasm interlaced throughout that series, but I don't know. I played like the first or second one a little bit, and then I was like, I don't care about this anymore.
What
Y
a very specific
yeah,
joke
I know it's
to turn
ridiculous.
into a game.
You had The Rock in Doom in 2005
And Rampage later on,
and
like
Rampage,
10 years
yeah.
later,
And
15
actually,
years
I think
later.
The Rock has done one or two other like campy video game adaptations or comic book adaptations, not the normal Marvel stuff, but some other stuff. He was in The Mummy, so there's that, you know.
Yeah, he was. He was the
Scorpion,
Scorpion King.
Scorpion King. That's right.
Man, The Mummy 2 is so unfortunate to me because it holds up as a movie, but, like and it was done by, like, the Lucasfilm special effects, Skywalker Ranch people,
Yep.
um, and it was clear there's just so many of those late '90s, early 2000s where they were like, "We have computer technology now,
I know. God
and
forbid.
we're gonna animate these million bugs coming at you in terrible looking,
I know. It
CGI."
yeah, looks like somebody just spewed a bunch of confetti at you. Like, no, those are bugs. Okay.
I you know, this is one of the things that I'm still mad at George Lucas for was like those remasters of the original trilogy of Star Wars where you've got like Jabba the Hutt and it just looks terrible.
I
It's like,
know.
how is this better than the puppet?
I know.
Like the
The
gorgeous,
the puppet's way
realistic
better.
looking
Yeah.
Jim Henson
Yeah,
Muppets or
give me the give me the
puppets.
maybe it's a Gen X thing, but us Gen Xers are starving for practical effects
Right.
big time. So
I prefer them for sure.
one of the other games that I really like the vibe of this game, but I feel like it should have been a different character in the movie. I haven't not seen the movie is Max Payne. That series was super dope, especially in the beginning. It was like different kind of game. You're back and forth between like a flashback state and a real like real time state, and it
Right.
was very the playability was very difficult and the controls and stuff, but it was very sparse and kind of creepy. And it really instead of Mark Wahlberg's in the movie, he looks like a ripped like action sports star, but the video game had somebody that was like skinny and kind of like malnutrition, gaunt, super sad. I think it's because his daughter died, like, that was part of the story or whatever, um, and he's always, like, stressed out and lots of internal dialogue, but there was no, like, massive explosions and, like, no Michael Bay horseshit mixed in there,
Right. Right.
but I feel like if they were gonna do a movie with Max Payne, they should have definitely gone more with somebody who was, like, skinnier and lankier and kinda gaunt, Adrian Brody could have been a good character for that
Yeah,
vibe-wise,
no,
yeah,
I could see that.
yeah.
I could see that. That's another series that I never played, and I've wanted to. Recently, I started playing the Alan Wake because they did like a
Oh, yeah,
remastered,
those are great
and
games,
and
dude.
the second one.
You don't like them?
I mean, is it supposed to be corny? Like, I can't get a clear answer on that because I'm like, the writing is so
That
on the nose
I
that
don't
it feels like it's supposed to be
I
corny
feel like
and not serious.
the playing the environments and stuff, I tend to be more focused on those in that game to where I'm not caring
Okay.
as much about the corny writing. I know what you're talking about,
You know
though.
what I'm
Yeah,
saying? And
yeah,
like, yeah, I've read that too, but like, I think where I'm struggling on the first, and again, I want to play the second one because the second one looks incredible, and the
yeah.
remaster of the first one is really good too. But it's like the mechanics, I can't get used to like the flashlight to ward away like the
Yeah,
darkness
yeah.
and stuff like that. I don't know. It's kind of clunky.
It is. It's clunky, and, there's a couple scenarios, I think, in the latest one where you just can't I just can't beat it, dude. I'm, like, in the beginning of the game, and I can't get out of this, like, certain section, and it's, like, too
And it's because
hard.
it doesn't
Yeah.
feel fluid.
Yeah.
Like the and
It's
that
a little
to me, see,
choppy.
that frustrates me.
Yeah,
Right.
if
It's kind of like, no, this is not my fault.
like, that if you open up a building out in the woods, and you go in there, and you see a bunch of clutter and stuff everywhere, you can automatically assume that just from a gameplay perspective, you're not gonna be able to barely move in there. Like, you're gonna be because the framework, for as far as the video game programming for you to move through a space is gonna be so small, and you'll get stuck in between this, like, bookshelf and the staircase or
Right.
something, and, like, you can't get
Right.
out unless you restart the level, and you're like, "Oh my gosh, dude." Yeah,
Right.
I hear you on that front. As far as these other ones, there's a lot
What
of
did it say was the best
the
or the
best
worst? What was the worst movie on the list?
the absolute worst was it says House of the Dead. That
Which was like
that's at
you
the
mentioned that
bottom,
to
right?
me.
That's at the bottom of the
Well, so
list.
that's number 1, so it
Yeah.
would be the worst of all 20
Yeah,
if
and
it's number 1.
for those of you that are really young and don't have never been to a real arcade or seen this before, House of the Dead was one of those arcade games where you could both grab guns
Mhm.
and you shoot zombies coming at you, and there's alien versions of zombies and stuff too, but you're standing there with a plastic gun that's like, tethered to a giant arcade machine, and you can do it with a person. Sometimes they had versions of House of the Dead that were in those enclosed arcade games where you could sit in there and it had a curtain, like, and then you could
Really
both sit
up
in
the
there to
realism.
yeah, totally. But the volume was always so loud in those things. You're like,
It really was.
my ears are ringing, but it was
Did
fun.
they ever put that on console?
I I don't know. Doing games that require like a actual physical gun controller didn't seem to stick around for very long unless I'm totally out of the loop, which is entirely possible.
I mean, I just thought this was very so the developer was Sega, and it looks like you can buy it. You can buy it on PlayStation 5 apparently.
Oh,
I don't know,
really?
some version of it. Yeah, so, I mean, like, I guess, go crazy. The original was released in 1997, and again, this was like a 3D arcade game. I didn't know that it was available on consoles, and I was like, "Wow, what a weird" like, that's like a quintessential arcade game.
Yeah. Yeah.
What a weird thing to make a movie about.
Totally.
Though they did make a movie based on Rampage as well, and I'm just kind of like, "You're officially out of ideas
Dude,
at
Rampage
Rampage."
Rampage was such a like no s it was such a like there's no story. There's buildings,
Right.
creatures walk on, you can climb up and down, you're battling
It's
helicopters that
Donkey
are trying
Kong.
yeah, it's basically it's
Like,
it's like a King Kong movie mixed with Donkey Kong
yeah.
and all 2D, 18 or 16-bit, whatever, but, like, to design an entire movie around that with The
We
Rock
need to
and
give
some
that a
kinda
narrative.
That's right.
I mean, I for look,
Like, how do you
in
know
its
when something
defense,
is worth a narrative or not to be a film?
it's not too far removed from Disney being like, "You know what? Pirates of the Caribbean, let's just make a whole ass movie,
Yeah.
franchise over it."
I mean, that's better than a
Um,
whole movie, let's be honest.
it's true.
I'll have to edit
It's
that
true.
one out. Maybe not. I don't know. I have censorship. I do have
An
some
ass movie.
censorship beep. I'll have to throw on there so you don't really know what I'm saying. But yeah,
Yeah.
um,
I don't but, that one was I don't think anybody went into it with kind of like and they were like, "What if it's Rampage, like, we're gonna base it on this video game, but it's like a throwback to kind of like Dante's Peak,
right, right.
thriller movies from the, you know, 80s and 90s or something
Dante's
like that."
Peak.
I don't
Gosh, I
know.
haven't heard seen that forever.
What was the other one? What was the one that,
There's the
uh
volcano one.
oh, that's what I'm thinking of
I
too.
think
There's
it had
Dante's Peak, and then there's the Cliffhanger, right? Cliffhanger? That's what
Cliffhanger's
Ace
Stallone.
Ventura: Pet Detective 2 is parodying at the beginning, right? Or is it the
I
first
think
one?
so. Yeah, Cliffhanger is
Where
the
he's
one
like
with
climbing?
Stallone.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, and he was like,
Cliffhanger. It's got to be that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, he was like a rock climber, like ranger guy or whatever. Stallone always plays in these movies where he's trying to retire.
He's just look, he's always like First Blood. Like Rambo's just a guy.
Just trying to retire,
He's
trying
just
to
trying to like get where he's going,
yeah, to get
man.
sucked
Like
back in.
and
Copland was the same stuff. He was
yeah,
amazing in that
he's
actually. He
just
wrote
trying
and
to
directed
do
that.
what we're
But
all doing, which
yeah.
is just he's just trying to get through life, and he's trying to get down this road to go see an old army
Yeah.
buddy,
It
and
always
they call
starts
the
out with
National
yeah.
Freaking Guard.
It always starts out with, yeah, I don't do that anymore. And they're like, dude, but we need you. You're like, you can put him in any situation, dude. It could be a retired cop, a retired military guy. It could be some like comic book character. It always starts out with him being approached after he's been trying to go isolate somewhere. for a certain amount of time or whatever.
You were talking the other day about the character in First Blood.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it was you, were played by Richard Crenna,
Yes.
the guy that's like, "I created him."
Yeah, yeah.
And I've just been thinking about, he is my favorite character in those in, First Blood and in the second one,
Richard
and well, he's in
Crenna's
the third.
role?
He's in all
Yeah.
3. Yeah, Richard Crenna's role, because
Yeah.
I'm just like, why is this dude here?
Yeah.
Like, they called him because they're like, "We gotta get inside the mind of this guy," and they're constantly, like, telling him to shut up, like, "We don't need your help. Get out of here. What are you doing here?" Now, I do think in the second one, they did not ask him for his help, but he just kind of, like, shows up.
Yeah.
But, like, Richard Crenna, like, the cutbacks to him just kind of, like, explaining, the origins
Yeah.
of Rambo,
Totally. Well, in
are
2 or 3,
so
Richard
good.
Crenna's character actually got captured,
That's
recaptured back into another war zone somewhere, and then Rambo's like, "I'm not doing this, I'm not doing this," and Crenna's like, "Okay," and then Crenna went out there to try to do a rescue operation by himself, which I don't know why he would do that because he's not Rambo, and then all of a sudden, they had to
Yeah.
come back and go, "Rambo."
Well, he knew Rambo would come.
He's like, "Rambo, there's a problem. Your homeboy is now out in the sticks, out in the bamboo, getting tortured, and all that. And he's sweaty and hungry and being electrocuted. So you now need to go out and save him." And he's like, "Okay." And then all of a sudden, it's all the close-up shots of him lifting weights and sticking knives into belts and
Sure, sure, yeah, there's a
holstering
montage.
things. Yeah,
2 and 3 are great movies for completely different reasons than First Blood. Like, First Blood is just a good
that's actually a
movie.
great dramatic film, to be honest.
It really, like,
And
you
it's
can
satisfying to watch Brian Dennehy get schooled.
oh my
Nothing
gosh,
was more
dude.
emotionally sad. Like my dad, he was
Than
in the
him,
Marines and he
yeah.
was in Vietnam, and that was one of his favorite films. And I remember my
All the
dad,
stolen valor that
yep,
Dennehy is
exactly, like
perpetuating.
taking for granted
Yeah.
being a soldier and stuff too. So when Dennehy had his coming to him, like by the time Rambo actually shot through the ceiling in the sheriff's office and like right up into Brian Dennehy and killed him that way,
Right.
my dad was like, "Yes!" screaming at the TV like
He's
a
got, like,
Texan watching football. Yeah,
the
exactly.
giant 50 caliber machine gun that he's just
Yeah.
shooting through the roof
That's
of,
so
like,
there's
a
just
hardware store.
yeah, and it always happens to be around. There's always a 50 cal M60
Heck yeah, man.
just like
You're
lying
just like,
around.
only Rambo could have picked that gun up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because it weighs like a
That
million
that is a
pounds.
but look to but I remember the first time my wife had never seen that movie before, and I was just kind of like, this is just a good movie. Like it's very, I don't know. He did 2 iconic series, Rocky and the Rambo movies, where the first one is just some of the best screenwriting, period.
Yep.
Like, we did like a whole semester in college in like a creative writing class on the screenplay to the first Rocky movie. So I
Wow.
have like a profound respect for that movie and for Sylvester Stallone as like a writer.
Yeah, he was a great writer,
Um,
actually.
those are both great. But then like the series became
I know.
something else, right? Like, and
Well,
look, I
yeah.
love Rocky 4 as much, if not more, than the first Rocky, but I like them for different
Rocky
reasons, right?
4
Like,
is when the switch happened, though, from like
yeah, that's
from the
true.
underdog story, because he was still an
Sure.
underdog in
Yeah.
Rocky 3 when he was battling Clubber Lang, Mr. T. And then
Yes.
when he switched
Yes.
over to the Drago, Ivan Drago thing, now all of a
Yeah.
sudden he's like rich and wealthy, and he has to get back to his roots and lift
Well,
logs in
and
the
right, and
snow and
like,
like
that's the thing, is
whatever.
like I
Yeah.
enjoy the Rocky story elements
Yeah.
of all of those, but like the first Rocky movie is just a great love story. Like, it's just a great
Yeah.
romantic
Totally.
drama
Yeah. Yeah.
for
You
sure.
could feel
Like,
all the like gritty, relatable, working class, normal daily struggles of human being thing in
yes.
that big time. Yeah, totally.
Right, and that's really what First Blood is about too, is very
Yeah.
much kind of like but from the Vietnam vet perspective of
Yep.
coming back and like how they were treated
Yep.
by a
Totally.
lot of people whenever they came back from
So
Vietnam War. I don't know how did this really went off the rails,
dude,
because we were supposed to be talking about
so in an attempt
ostensibly Mass Effect
in a,
TV show.
an attempt to rein it back into the video, at least the video game track, I did look up to see if there was a Rambo video game.
There
and
was,
there
and it was not
was
good.
it was,
It wasn't good.
Xbox 360,
Yeah,
it looks like, and yeah, it just was
and it
the
sucked.
cover literally says Rambo, the video game.
Yeah, they were like, "We're not." It was so unfortunate because people were like, "This is gonna be amazing,"
Yeah, I know, and it
and it
wasn't.
was
It's
terrible.
just terrible. Yeah, so there's the other way around where you try to convert a movie into a video game, and it, like, not often has it hit,
Yeah.
you know?
It really hasn't.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that the reason it's starting to turn now, and so you know what another really unfortunate casualty was Uncharted. Like that could have been to me like the Naughty Dog. So Naughty Dog is the developer behind Uncharted and The Last of Us.
Okay.
And a lot of the same people that worked on The Last of Us worked on Uncharted, obviously. And so like Uncharted really should have been had a good chance from a storytelling perspective to like be good. And I just think the way that they went about it, like
Yeah.
they went Tom Holland, which I get it from a casting standpoint of wanting to like, cash in on how big he is.
Mhm.
But Nathan Drake is like a dude in his 40s. He's like an Indiana Jones type. And look, this is a
Yeah.
difficult assignment anyway,
Yeah.
because it's a video game based on clearly Indiana Jones.
Right.
Uh, with a little bit different of a character, but he's still like a wise Alec, and he's putting himself into scrapes that he doesn't need to put himself in.
Right.
Again, it's like how do we do Indiana Jones without that IP? And
Yep.
this is kind of what they came up with. But like Uncharted is really unfortunate that they like again shoved Mark Wahlberg into a place he didn't need to be,
Right.
to be perfectly honest. Like he's playing Sully. And again, when we think of if you've played the game, when we think of the characters, we think of like Sully being like an old guy with a mustache, and you think of Nathan Drake being in his 40s, and then they cast Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg, and they're like, "Oh, well, this takes place in like this cutscene of Uncharted 2 whenever they first met. And so we're going to go from there." It's like, but no one wants that. Like we want
Yeah.
the game.
Exactly. They're like,
We want grizzled
I don't
Nathan Drake.
yeah, I don't need to see, like, the 2 latest, hottest guys in Hollywood version, you know? It's like,
And it's like, but again, dude, like to your point earlier, like what is Mark Wahlberg doing
yeah,
here?
he's not even yeah. And he did that movie with, Will Ferrell too, where they were, like, cops or whatever, and it was terrible, dude. It was like, Wahlberg, stay out of humor. It's not your
You
jam.
know who should have played Sully is Brian Cox.
Oh, yeah, that would've been good.
Holy crap. And like, I don't who's a guy everybody really wanted like Nathan Fillion
Oh,
to
yeah.
play like Nathan Drake. I mean, because he looks just like Nathan Fillion.
Yeah.
And like Nathan Fillion does have that I mean, he could have played him great. I'm not gonna get mad that they were like, no, because this needs to have like some shot of commercial success. And like Nathan Fillion is like a character actor that's done a bunch of great TV
Yeah,
shows and
for
stuff
sure.
like that. Um but like yeah, it just didn't make sense what they tried to do with it. And so thankfully for The Last of Us, they were like I know some people were upset with the casting on that show too, but I feel like they nailed it.
Dude,
Uh
Pedro, bro.
Pedro and Bella are
Yeah,
both just
phenomenal.
incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible. And the show is not exactly like the game. It's more carryover than I thought it was going to be. To me,
And
it's
to be
like the
honest,
director's cut of the game.
yeah, totally.
It's narrative, because in the game you have to cut certain story elements out where instead of showing
So it
you
can
have to kind of
yeah, so
like
it can be
you
a
have to kind of
game.
do it.
Yeah,
Yeah, so you have to kind of do some of the narrative elements in the process of gameplay,
right.
right? So I think what they tried to do with the show was like, well, what are some stories that we wanted to tell but we really couldn't tell, or maybe we didn't tell as effectively because we had to have it had to happen during the game.
Right.
And so that they've been able to kind of tell some of those stories with the show. And so I'm stoked to see what happens in what they do with season 2, because season 2 is definitely going to throw some people for a loop if they've never played the game.
100%. Well,
So
hey, I think this is probably a good time to break because we have covered the roadmap ad nauseum of video games and movies, I think, on this episode.
yeah, so I really don't even like what was the topic. We just kind of talked about video games and
Well, initially, we were kinda talking about because the first thing that triggered this, yesterday when we were trying to plan it out was I saw that they were gonna turn Mass Effect into a show. Amazon is. Either a film
mhm.
or on a series, whatever, and then you know how we are, bro. It's like you bring a topic to the table, and then we're gonna look for every possible tangential conversation that you can attach to it and just hit it.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, what are your big takeaways
My big takeaways
this
are,
week?
this week, be careful with, my thing would be advice to production companies. If you're gonna go in and try to do either a movie based on a video game or a video game based on a movie, like, check with the fans. Seriously. And practical
Yeah.
effects. Practical effects. Write things in a way and create things in a way where there's the
There
opportunity.
are fans though that are like, you should just cast the voice actors as the people in the movie.
Oh, yeah, I can see that.
And that's insane.
Yeah, I know.
Like they wanted Ashley Johnson, the voice actress, incredibly talented voice actress that played Ellie in The Last of Us. They're
Yep.
like, she should just play her in the show. It's like she's a grown woman.
Yeah.
She's like
she's
almost 40.
she's not gonna sound like a, a kid anymore,
You want her to play a 13-year-old child?
Yeah.
What? So, yeah, or like again, there was a very vocal Nathan Fillion contingent. And I'm just like, that's not a commercial. It's just they're not going to. Don't get your hopes up.
Yeah.
And then especially don't get angry.
Yeah, I know.
So
Well, hey, this was it's good to have take a little bit of a break from the tech industry. We could consider.
I want Brian. I think my big takeaway was Brian Cox just needs to be in more things in general. I can't fully articulate
I mean,
how happy him being the voice of McDonald's makes me.
right?
Like he's like barely trying. They're like, Brian, can we just get another take real quick? And he's just like, they're like, one more time. There's more notes than that.
Yeah.
It's like he's like walking away in the middle. Like he's like, this is so.
Right. He's like,
I can't believe I'm doing this.
he's like, just put a wireless mic on me and I'll wave to you while I'm walking away and saying it. Yeah. And I'm like,
so
Brian Cox is too old to be eating McDonald's anyway. Seriously.
Brian
come
Cox
on.
is not eating McDonald's.
Well,
is
hey,
not
I would
eating
consider this
McDonald's.
our first official, more like thematic episode around gaming.
There was like a general kind of like
This
it started and then it was over.
This is a show
vibe.
about the show being on the show, and here we are on the show. Yeah, that's pretty much. That's what happens when you have two dudes with ADHD on here trying to actually do a podcast. But
we really thought for a long time this week too. We talked about it yesterday. We were trying to like, what's a good topic for this week? And then like, I was like, well, I like video games. Do you like video games?
All right, let's start tomorrow. Here we go. All right, cool. Anyway,
show over. Next show.
Show over.
Yeah.
Show over. Well, thanks to everybody watching, listening, participating, vomiting because you couldn't stand what we were saying or how we look. I mean, whatever your participation and engagement was with the show, we appreciate you.
Yeah, if you really think that Ashley Johnson should still be playing Ellie, let me know.
Yeah, I'm gonna
drop us an ad.
Exactly, and write your congressman too to request that particular.
Yes.
All right, everybody,
be more effective.
We will. We'll catch you next time.
Later, guys.
Later on.